Mr. Speaker, I move that the House suspend the rules and pass the bill Senate 452, the Willie O'Ree Congressional Gold Medal Act, sponsored by Senator Stabenow.
The clerk will report the title of the bill.
Senate 452, an act to award a Congressional Gold Medal to Willie O'Ree in recognition of his extraordinary contributions and commitment to hockey, inclusion, and recreational opportunity.
Pursuant to the rule, the gentlewoman from Pennsylvania, Ms. Dean, and the gentleman from Kentucky, Mr. BARR, each will control 20 minutes. The chair recognizes the gentlewoman from Pennsylvania.
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that all members may have 5 legislative days within which to revise and extend their remarks on this legislation and to insert extraneous material thereon.
Without objection.
I yield myself such time as I may consume. Mr. Speaker, I rise in strong support of S452, the Willie O'Ree Congressional Gold Medal Act. I want to thank the gentlewoman from Michigan, Senator Stabenow, and the gentleman from Illinois, Representative Quigley, for their work on this bill, which honors Willie O'Ree, a trailblazer for diversity and inclusion in sports and the first black player in the National Hockey League. Born in 1935 in the predominantly white town of Fredericton, New Brunswick, Canada, O'Ree made a name for himself as a standout athlete in both ice hockey and baseball. At age 21, he was being scouted by professional baseball teams in the United States. However, upon experiencing racial discrimination and the effects of segregation firsthand while in the South for minor league tryouts, he shifted his focus solely to ice hockey. In 1958, at age 22, O'Ree was called up to play professionally as a winger for the NHL Boston Bruins, and in doing so, became the first black professional ice hockey player in the league. Despite being blind in one eye from an injury during his time as an amateur hockey player and enduring racist attacks from hockey fans and players alike, O'Ree persevered and continued to play professional hockey for 22 years. In 1996, the National Hockey League hired O'Ree as its first ever diversity ambassador, which set out to transform the predominantly white sport of ice hockey by providing greater access and opportunity for children of all races, ethnicities, and origins. O'Ree has personally devoted thousands of hours to Hockey is for Everyone, programs which provide community outreach and support for youth participants to partake in physical fitness and live out hockey's core values of commitment, discipline, and respect for your teammates, coaches, and parents. In 2018, 60 years after O'Ree first broke the color barrier for ice hockey, he was inducted into the NHL Hockey Hall of Fame in recognition of his long-standing support for greater access and diversity in the sport. This bill honors O'Ree's trailblazing legacy both on and off the ice. I thank Ms. Stabenow and Mr. Quigley for their work on this bill and urge members to vote yes. I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentlewoman reserves. The gentleman from Kentucky is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield myself such time as I may consume. I rise in support of S452, the Willie O'Ree Congressional Gold Medal Act. Willie O'Ree's story is one of determination and perseverance, one of the greatest qualities a human being can have. Willie, born October 15, 1935, was the youngest of 13 children of parents Rosebud and Harry O'Ree. The O'Ree family was one of only 2 black families that lived in Fredericton, New Brunswick. Willie is a descendant of Paris O'Ree, a slave who escaped servitude in South Carolina in the late 1700s at only 15 years old. When he was 3, Willie fashioned skates out of wooden blocks with metal blades attached to the bottom and took to his frozen lawn in the backyard. He had a knack for skating. 2 years later, at age 5, Willie began to play organized hockey. Many refer to Willie as the Jackie Robinson of hockey. Interestingly, at Dodger Stadium in 1949, 2 years after Robinson broke baseball's color barrier, a 14-year-old O'Ree had the opportunity to meet his hero. In one interview, Willie recalls that as Robinson made his way down to the receiving line, Willie waited patiently, and when his turn arrived, he spoke to Jackie and said, "I'm a baseball player, but what I really love is hockey. Robinson replied, quote, "Oh, I didn't know black kids played hockey," unquote. Nearly 9 years later, on January 18th, 1958, Willie put on a Boston Bruins uniform for a game against the Montreal Canadiens and became the first black player in NHL history. From 1958 to 1961, O'Ree played in 45 games for the Bruins, all while hiding a secret that he was, in fact, blind in one eye. Willie paved the way for a new generation of hockey players. Wayne Simmons of the Toronto Maple Leafs was quoted as saying, "Willie set the table for everyone else to eat, and he did it all with dignity and class. I used to think about Willie's story whenever teachers or hockey parents or coaches would laugh at my dream of making it to the NHL." Willie's story did not end after he left the ice. 17 years after he retired from professional hockey, the NHL hired O'Ree as their first ever diversity ambassador. This role put Willie in a position to grow the sport by providing access, opportunity, and motivation for children of all races, ethnicities, origins, and abilities. In November of 2018, O'Ree was inducted into the Hockey Hall of Fame, and just last night, 64 years to the day of his historic entrance into the league, his number 22 jersey was raised to the rafters in TD Garden and retired. An act of ultimate recognition of what a player means to a franchise, a fan base, and a community. Mr. Speaker, Willie O'Ree forever changed the sport of hockey. His determination and perseverance should be recognized with a Congressional Gold Medal. I urge my colleagues to support this bill, and I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman from Kentucky reserves. The gentlewoman from Pennsylvania is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I am pleased to now yield 5 minutes to the gentleman from Illinois, Mr. Quigley.
The gentleman from Illinois is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, 2 days ago, our country took time to celebrate the life of Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr., and reflect on the ongoing effort to ensure racial equality in America. It is fitting, then, that today this body considers legislation to honor the life of Willie O'Ree, who, like Dr. King, was on the front lines of racial integration in America and has dedicated his life to the ideals of diversity and inclusion. In 1958, Willie O'Ree integrated the sport of hockey by becoming the first black player in the National Hockey League. Well known are the stories of barrier-breaking athletes like Jackie Robinson in baseball or Bill Russell in basketball. Mr. O'Ree's story is less known. He was born in Canada, the youngest of 13 children. His grandfather, Paris O'Ree, escaped slavery in South Carolina and fled to Canada. Growing up in Canada, he quickly developed both a love and talent for hockey. During his early years playing hockey, he was blinded in one eye by a stray puck. However, this setback did not deter him from his dream of playing professional hockey. A few years later, he finally got the call to play in the NHL with the Bruins, becoming the first black player to do so. But the road ahead was not easy. During his time playing for the Bruins, he endured racist slurs by fans and opposing teams. He suffered illegal hits and rough treatment constantly. But still, that was not enough to deter him. He remained committed to playing hockey and would do so for 22 years in the NHL and the minor leagues. Think about that. He played 22 years of professional hockey while enduring racism and bigotry, and only having vision in one eye. Willie never intended to stop the fight for inclusion in the league once he left playing hockey. After hanging up his skates, he became the NHL's diversity ambassador, a role he continues to this day. In the 1990s, he established the Hockey is for Everyone initiative to offer marginalized and underrepresented children an opportunity to play hockey and develop important life skills. Since its inception, 120,000 children have participated in this program. After his remarkable career on and off the ice, he began to receive the recognition he deserved. In 2018, he was inducted into the Hockey Hall of Fame, and just last night, his jersey was retired by the Boston Bruins. It has been my honor to know Willie over the past decade and help lead this bill to award him a Congressional Gold Medal. I am thankful to my colleagues, Representative Higgins, PRESSLEY, EMMER, and Katko, who led this legislation in the House, and Senators Stabenow and Scott, who helped in the Senate. When I was young, my heroes were hockey players. They were talented, strong, and skilled. They taught me many things. And at the time, they were all white. Willie fought this his entire life. He fought to change that during and after his career. Hockey, the sports world, and our country are better off because of his efforts. I had no idea that the year I was born, Willie O'Ree broke the color barrier in hockey, and it wasn't until years later when I had the honor of meeting him that I learned that my own heroes from the Chicago Blackhawks and their fans gave him some of the harshest treatment during his time in the NHL. But his life has been a true testament to those values I learned as a young hockey fan: strength, courage, and perseverance, even in the face of tremendous odds. He is a true gift to our country, to the sport, and I and so many others love. Awarding him the Congressional Gold Medal will serve as a small but important token of our country's gratitude. Thank you, and I yield back.
I reserve.
The gentlewoman from Pennsylvania reserves. The gentleman from Kentucky is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I would like to yield as much time as he may consume to a member of Congress who not only played collegiate hockey and is a hockey dad and spent over 20 years as a hockey coach. He's one of the best fans of the game of hockey in the United States Congress, the gentleman from Minnesota, Mr. Emmer.
Gentleman from Minnesota is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, a little over the top. I rise today in support of S-452, the Willie O'Ree Congressional Gold Medal Act, and to recognize the incredible impact that Willie O'Ree has had on our great sport of hockey. Willie etched his name into the history books in 1958 when he became one of the select few, and it is a very few, who got called up from the minors to play for the National Hockey League, in the National Hockey League for the Boston Bruins. Willie broke down racial barriers for sure. He would go on to play for more than 24 seasons as a professional hockey player, despite facing countless challenges on and off the ice. But Willie O'Ree remains a trailblazer for many. But his contributions certainly did not end after his retirement from his playing career in 1979. As we've heard, in 1996, he became the NHL's diversity ambassador. In this capacity, he established the Hockey is for Everyone initiative to create a culture of inclusivity and provide an opportunity for disadvantaged children across this country and North America to play the game. His work continues even to this day to reinvigorate and grow the great sport of hockey while setting an example for underrepresented communities here at home and on an international level. As the NHL and teams across the country finally recognize Willie O'Ree's incredible contributions to hockey, today is Congress's opportunity to honor a true legend of the game that is loved and enjoyed by millions. Remember, we know that hockey was given to us directly from God because it is played on ice, which can only exist in heaven. And I'm proud to co-lead this long overdue effort, and I urge all my colleagues in the House of Representatives to honor this icon of our God-given sport by voting yes on S-452, and I yield back.
Mr. Speaker, I continue to reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman from Kentucky reserves. The gentlewoman from Pennsylvania is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I am pleased to now yield 4 minutes to the gentlewoman from Massachusetts, Ms. Pressley.
The gentlewoman from Massachusetts is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in strong support of our bill, the Willie O'Ree Congressional Gold Medal Act, legislation which honors the historic career and life of service of the one and only Willie O'Ree. With today's vote in the People's House, we honor a giant, and it has been an honor to be a steward in this effort. Willie is a trailblazer, an icebreaker, a hero and activist whose powerful story is unknown to too many. That ends here today. We change that. 64 years ago, in the midst of the fight to end Jim Crow, Willie O'Ree made history with the Boston Bruins by becoming the first black player to play in the National Hockey League. A descendant of enslaved people who escaped the horrors of slavery through the Underground Railroad, Willie was born and raised in New Brunswick, Canada, and was the youngest of 13 children. His love of the game began at the young age of 3, where he earned his stripes playing alongside his older siblings. Known as the Jackie Robinson of hockey, Willie played 45 games in the NHL and spent more than 2 decades playing professional hockey, all while hiding the fact that he was nearly completely blind in one eye. Willie O'Ree was a young and fast left winger, but he could not outskate the racist backlash in response to his desegregating the National Hockey League. As the sole black player in the NHL at the time, Willie endured relentless bigotry, racism, discrimination, and even violence from fans and players, both on and off the ice. And despite it all, Willie embodied resilience, grace, dignity, and never gave up on the determination to live out his dream. In the decades following his historic career on the ice, Willie has spent his time paying it forward to the next generation of icebreakers. As the NHL's Director of Youth Development and a Diversity Ambassador, he has worked to increase opportunities for young black and brown players so that they too can take their rightful place in the big league. In 2018, Willie was formally inducted into the NHL Hall of Fame, and while his time with the Boston Bruins was short, his legacy lives on to this very day. Earlier this week, Mayor Michelle Wu declared January 18th in the city of Boston Willie O'Ree Day, marking the momentous day 64 years ago when Willie hit the ice and changed the game forever. Just yesterday, the Boston Bruins formally retired Willie's number 22 jersey, raising it up in the rafters at the Garden alongside other Bruins legends. Mr. Speaker, Black history is American history. And today, we salute an American hero and inspiration. Willie demonstrates for us the power of holding on to one's dreams. An ice and ceiling breaker. I would like to thank my esteemed colleagues, Representatives Quigley, Kako, and EMMER for their partnership, and the 290 colleagues who co-sponsored this piece of legislation in order to get it across the finish line. My team and I have been working diligently, pushing and organizing since 2019, and this work would not have been possible without the support and partnership of the longtime grassroots activists who organized to ensure that Willie, who took up space, who created space, now takes his rightful space in our history books. The Congressional Gold Medal is Congress's highest expression of national appreciation and recognition. With this honor, Willie will join history makers like Jackie Robinson, the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and Coretta Scott King, and the Tuskegee Airmen. Incredible company for an incredible man.
I yield the gentlewoman an additional minute.
Willie O'Ree, now at the age of 86 years young, today, Willie O'Ree, we give you your flowers. Go Bruins.
Gentlewoman from Pennsylvania is recognized.
I reserve.
Gentlewoman reserves. The gentleman from Kentucky is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I would just like to once again reiterate the significance of this Congressional Gold Medal. Willie O'Ree not only forever changed the sport of hockey, but he truly helped change the history of this country. His determination and perseverance, his trailblazing spirit should be recognized with a Congressional Gold Medal, and I yield back the balance of my time.
Yields the balance of his time. The gentlewoman from Pennsylvania is recognized.
I'm now pleased to yield 1 minute to the gentleman from New York, Mr. Higgins.
The gentleman from New York is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today in support of S. 452, the Willie O'Ree Congressional Gold Medal Act. Willie O'Ree, which has been already said, was a trailblazer for hockey both on and off the ice. He was to the National Hockey League what Jackie Robinson was to Major League Baseball. As the first black player in the National Hockey League, he endured racism, bigotry, and prejudice from both players and fans. Despite this, he played more than 2 decades in the National Hockey League and in the minor leagues, developing his skills, later becoming the National Hockey League's diversity ambassador. Willie O'Ree broke down historic barriers and paved the way for young athletes in marginalized communities. In 2012, he visited my community for the Willie O'Ree Skills Weekend, hosted by the National Hockey League Buffalo Sabres. Today, we honor his dedication to improving diversity and accessibility in sports, which makes him most deserving of this high honor. He is an inspiration to all athletes, and particularly to young athletes of color in Western New York and throughout the nation. I strongly urge my colleagues to support this bipartisan legislation, and I yield back.
The gentlewoman from Pennsylvania is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I yield myself the balance of the time. Willie O'Ree is often referred to as the, quote, Jackie Robinson of ice hockey, unquote, for helping to end racial segregation in the National Hockey League. Yet O'Ree's positive impact on the sport of ice hockey goes far beyond his role in ending racial segregation in the sport. This bill honors O'Ree for both his barrier-breaking role and his decades of championing diversity and greater youth access to the sport. I thank Ms. Stabenow and Mr. Quigley, the lead sponsor of the House version of the bill, and for our other colleagues who worked so hard on this bill, for ensuring that Mr. O'Ree and his trailblazing legacy of sportsmanship and inclusion receive the recognition he so richly deserves. I yield back the balance of my time.
The gentlewoman from Pennsylvania yields the balance of her time. The question is, will the House suspend the rules and pass Senate 452? Those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. In the opinion of the chair, 2/3 being in the affirmative,
I request the yeas and nays.
pursuant to Section 3S of House Resolution 8, the yeas and nays are ordered. Members will record their votes by electronic device.